Today at Deutsche Auto Parts, we're going to be going over a Revo front mount intercooler install on a MK7 GTI. Okay, so before we go into our intercooler DIY install, just want to touch on this Revo intercooler we're installing. When we got it from them, it was something that was given to us by Revo. Just full disclosure, they didn't pay us to do this, but we are doing this for them, and they did give us the intercooler. This intercooler is extremely high quality product. We actually compared it to a Golf R intercooler. If you take a look here, the core itself is about ½ inch thicker than the original Golf R intercooler, which is even thicker than, slightly thicker than the stock GTI intercooler. They have a lot of published numbers about the efficiency of this, so if you take a look, we'll link that up as well, the numbers that they have published about the additional efficiency over the stock intercooler. To begin with this install, the front end needs to come off the car, so we're going to start by taking off the grille. And we have our 2 Torx screws, and they are T20s. And then we can just pop the grille and then pop it up and put that aside. And now we're going to take our fender, side of our fenders, and then the lower part of the bumper. All right, so now we're going to take these T20 Torx that are in the fender well out, and there are 3 of them that actually hold the fender liner on, and then there's 1 more that holds the bumper to the fender, and that's vertical. So you have to get in there. All right, we're going to take off the screws here, T20 as well. All right, now we're going to take the belly pan loose. Okay, so now we have all of our screws off. We're ready to take the bumper cover off. One quick note, you want to make sure that you are unplugging the fog lights as you take it off. All you're going to do is pop this edge loose from the fender once the screws are out, and you'll see it's loose and everything's there. And then we're going to slide it forward and unplug the fog lights. Best to have a friend here with you just to make sure you don't end up screwing up your fog lights. And there is these clips that hold it on in the radiator support. Once you pop them loose, everything will kind of just fall out of place. You can rotate the bumper forward like that a little bit to access the fog light clips. And we can put it down. Okay, we're going to take off this plastic grille support here, and there are T27 Torx screws that hold them in place. Now we're going to pop this trim piece out of the way. It allows you to see there's a clip down here that actually holds this grille in place that you need to release. So all you're gonna do is push in and then pop it down, and then you can kind of pull that out of the way. All right, now we're gonna release this side, and we've gotten this pulled out of the way, and we're gonna pull here and then kind of release this tab. If you want, you can use a screwdriver to help push on the locking tab itself to give you a little bit more to pop it out, and now we can release it. All right, we're going to take these 2 10mm off. All right, so now we're going to take off our ambient air temp sensor. If you pull that wire out of the way, and then you can push down your clip and pop it out. Just a quick note, it's important on the driver's and passenger side, there are crash sensors on the radiator. They have a yellow connector on them. This will need to be removed before you take apart any part of this radiator support to make sure you don't rip out the wires. If you take a look at the connector itself, there's a red locking tab. Now we can't push that in because it isn't engaged, but When this is plugged in, that will be engaged. You pull that back to unlatch it, and then you push to release from the connector. You will need to take this off. There is one on either side. There's also a coolant temp sensor clip, as well as on the other side of the radiator support. Okay, so now we're going to unplug the horn, and the horns need to come unplugged because they are attached to this bracket, which will need to come off. So we can take that and then also pop this loose from the bracket. Now we're going to take off the T30 right here. This mounts the crash bar to the radiator support itself. All right, so we're underneath the headlight on the driver's side of the vehicle. Again, this is the side of the radiator support, and this is the other T30 torque you need to take out on either side of the radiator support. All right, now we're going to take these T30s out and repeat the same process on the opposite side. Okay, so now we have our screw backed out most of the way. We have Helix headlights on this car, so we're not exactly sure if this tight clearing is because of the Helix housing or if it's because this is just the way it is, but you can get past it. It's a pretty snug in there, so you will have to work past that. If you need to, you can try to loosen the headlight to give you a little more play to get that out of there. And then we're going to take off our others. Again, there are 4 that hold it in place. This top one I'm loosening now, you're not going to see on camera. And then the 2 on the bottom here. And you're going to want to leave one of these in. We have the other side still in, but we're going to leave the other one side in until you're ready to actually pull this loose. Okay, so now everything's loose. We're going to take our last screw out. And once that's loose, this bracket should come out of here, and you can pop it out from there, and then you should be able to loosen it out and pull it out of the way. We're here on the driver's side of the vehicle. We took the clip out up top of this air guide, and there are 2 more clips they need to pop out. All you do is get a screwdriver in there, push down, and slide out, and we can repeat the same process for the same air duct on the other side. All right, so here we are on the clips that hold the radiator, intercooler, and condenser assembly in place. What we're going to do is pop these clips down, and then we can get a screwdriver behind and use that to get past it. Now, you can do that on either side. Just be really careful, because this feels like there could, if you're not too careful, they could break. All right. Okay, so now we're going to release the hood cable, and to do so, we can pop this cover off here, and there's a latch on each side, and you can pop it off. Now, once you do so, you can see the hood cable will just pop off. We can disconnect our washer bottle. And then get that out of the way. Okay, so we have the hood latch loose, and we actually have a roll cart underneath this setup to support the whole assembly for when it loosens up. So we're going to finally take out these screws that they hold the headlight housing to the actual radiator support itself. They're a 10mm, or they use a Torx as well. And we already did the one on the driver's side. All right, so now that that's loose, we can take this and move this whole setup past our headlight. And once we do that, you can kind of pop the intercooler up and out of the radiator support. And we can get this out of the way. And then we can do the same thing over here. We can pop this up and get this out of the way. So now we're going to take the condenser off the intercooler, and we can do so. I'm going to pop this loose here, kind of wiggle a screwdriver in place. Be careful because these clips are not going to be super strong. And kind of wiggle that out, and then pop it up, and do the same for the other side. Here we are at the radiator assembly where the intercooler mounts. This tab is the only thing holding it from pulling forward up here. It's a little bit challenging. So what you're going to need to do is get a pick. I'm going to try not to block the camera here. Push down. And then pop it forward. Okay, once we got the clip up top loosened, if you take a look here, this bracket kind of holds it in place to the intercooler, and all we did was pop it up, and then now you can slide the intercooler forward. And we're going to do that on the opposite side as well. All right, now all of our clips are loose and the intercooler assembly is loose. What we have is the radiator support and then the condenser pulled forward and the radiator kind of pushed back. The end tanks where the connections are have to clear, which is a little bit tough, so you'll have to work that past the radiator, and now we have our intercooler out. Okay, so when you purchase the Revo intercooler, it's a modular setup, so it's going to come with all this hardware that comes with it, and then you have to swap on what you need. Now for the Mark 7, there's these small brackets here for the condenser to slide into, and they're going to screw in place. And then you have the brackets that hold the intercooler and whole assembly to the core support, which you slide these into here, and then you screw them onto the side. So if you take a look here, once you screw it on, you can take a look and see there are a couple different options. You're going to want to make sure that you choose the one that lines up with your other intercooler. You can compare the other intercooler side by side to make sure that it lines up with your setup. All right, we also added these two brackets to the rear for where the radiator hooks on to the intercooler, which are also required for before installation of the intercooler. Here's our intercooler. We're going to pop it in place, and we got to get it past the radiator and get the radiator over top of the intercooler. It's best to start by getting the intercooler as low as you can. That way you can get the radiator mounted in place and then put the rest on top. Now we're going to install this upper bracket where the intercooler mounts the radiator and get it in place. You can install it before installing the radiator, but this could potentially make it easier to not have to try to get everything clipped in place. You can just mount it in and then get your screw in and thread it in to tighten. All right, so when you have your assembly in place, you can slide this in and then bolt down the included brackets that attach to here, and they'll mount in place like so. Now we have our condenser. The bracket is all mounted up. If you take a look, this is the main bracket for where it mounts to the radiator support, and then we're going to reinstall that. Now we're going to reinstall the complete assembly back into the core support, and much like the other intercooler, there are two tabs that go into the rubber grommets in the core support. It's best to start by getting them in place, and then you can worry about getting the clips up top. All right, so now we're going to snap these clips into place, and once you get them slid up, take a screwdriver and kind of pull them in all the way, and then make sure they latch. You are going to want to make sure that you get past the point where they're latching. And now we have our radiator support latched in place. All right, so we have just two bolts threaded in. Make sure that this is mounted in place, and we're going to finish up putting our bolts into this core support. It is a little bit of a challenge, so it might be good to have a friend with you when you're doing this, just to make sure everything can mount in place properly. Now we have all our 16s tightened. We're going to grab these two T30s. Remember, there's one down here and one up top here that you're not going to be able to see us tighten. And we're going to install those. Okay, once those are tight, we're gonna plug in all of our wiring down here, which is our ambient air temp sensor. Make sure you get that clip in place. Plug that in, get that harness in place. You can plug the horn in. And now all of our wiring, make sure you get that clip down here, which you probably can't see, in place, and we can go to the other side. All right, we're gonna put these 210s in place. Okay, so we want to make sure that we re-plug in all sensors on the passenger side as well. And there are 3 on this side, the crash sensor. There is the connector for the hood micro switch, and as well as a coolant temp sensor. I'm gonna get them plugged in. Make sure you push that red tab back in place, and then we're gonna install our grille support here. And all these tabs hook in place. And so we're going to snap them in the bottom, and then we are going to bolt them in here. Okay, so now we have our headlight all mounted in place. We're going to put this bar back in place and put this hood latch cable in place. What you're going to do is take the hood latch, put the ball in place, and then slide it in place and lock it down. You're going to need to pop it over just to make sure everything stays in place. Since you've taken this out, make sure you pop that back in place. And take our T27s, put them back. We're going to put our bumper cover on now, and once we're done doing that, we're going to raise the car up, put the intercooler hoses on, and button everything up. Again, whenever you're installing the bumper cover, don't forget your fog lights. All right. Okay, so we're going to install our intercooler hose. One quick note, I always like to install the clamps beforehand. That way, get them in the correct orientation. That way you don't have to take the hose back off because you put the clamp in the wrong way. So, let's start by getting our hose in place. And then you want to make sure that you get everything in place. And all the hoses are 100% seated all the way down before tightening them. Now, just a quick note, this particular hose only seems to go on one way, as in the one side seems to be slightly larger than the other. So if you're having trouble getting it on, you probably should flip it around. to the other side. Now we're going to install our fender liner screws, including the one that mounts the fender and the bumper. All right, we're going to install our grill. As we've shown before, all you do, pop it down. You're going to want to make sure that this is popped down all the way. And then pop that in place. There you go. And you can double check your gaps. Make sure they are not excessive. And we can put our screws in place. And we have now completed our Revo intercooler install. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to check out more like it. For more information about the products featured in this video, check out our website at shopdap.com.